Shift share analysis is a great tool for determining the clusters that are doing well in your region. Let's take just a minute or two to better understand what shift share analysis is and how to use it when determining strategies for your region. Shift share analysis splits regional job growth into three components: the national change effect, industrial mix effect, and regional competitiveness effect. A time frame is required to perform shift share analysis. So for our example, let's look between 2008 and 2013 in the energy cluster. Let's start with the national growth effect. The national growth effect explains how much of the regional industry's growth is explained by simply the overall change in the national economy. In our example, the national economy grew by roughly 2%, so that we would expect that the job increase between 2008 and 2013, all else held equal, would be 2% increase. If the economy slumped and fell by 5%, then we would expect every industry to also decrease employment by 5%, all else held equal. The industrial mix effect represents the share of regional industry growth explained by the growth of the industry at the national level. In our example of the energy cluster, only 3 of the industries that fall within the industry cluster had an increase in industry employment growth over the 5-year period. These included miscellaneous intermediation, crude petroleum and natural gas extraction, and metal tank manufacturing. The rest of the industries all fared poorly over the last 5 years, so that each industry that fell within that cluster was expected to have a decrease in employment. Let's look at the first industry in the table, petrochemical manufacturing. In 2008, the number of jobs in that industry was 407. In 2013, the number of jobs increased by 8. The national trend suggested that, all else held equal, jobs should have increased by 9, but they didn't. They increased by 8. On the same token, the industry trend said that the jobs should have decreased by 59. But again, the overall change was only a positive 8. So there is one additional factor in the shift share analysis, and this is the most important one. This is the regional performance. The regional competitiveness effect is the most important of the 3 indicators. It explains how much of the change in a given industry is due to some unique competitive advantage that that region possesses. This effect is calculated by taking the total regional growth and subtracting the national growth and industrial mix effect. In our example of petrochemical manufacturing, we know that the total number of jobs increased by 8 over the 5-year period. However, the total number of jobs based on the national trend and the industry trend should have decreased employment by a total of 50 jobs. We get at this number by looking at the increase in 9 jobs from the national trend and the decrease in negative 59 jobs from the industry trend. Thus, the aggregate effect should have been negative 50. However, we saw that the number of jobs actually increased by 8, so that the regional performance or the regional competitiveness effect is actually 58 jobs. This signifies that there is something specific to that region that caused that particular industry to fare better than expected given the national and industrial trend. So we have to ask ourselves, what is special about this region that allowed itself to nurture some of these industries when it was expected that those industries were not supposed to perform well? Are there certain factors, such as a particular type of skilled workforce or natural resources that played a factor in the success of these industries? And what about those industries that fared worse than expected? We need to also ask ourselves why they didn't perform as well as they had expected. The Shift Share Analysis tool is a great conversation starter because it says, forget everything that happened at the national level and forget everything that has happened for this particular industry nationwide. What is so special about our region, and how can we further capitalize on the assets within our region that are causing certain industries to fare better than across the rest of the nation? These unique regional circumstances should be identified and inventoried, and strategies should be created to further capitalize on these assets.